Hello, and welcome back to Gimmicky Tech, the series about underappreciated decks and the underappreciated tech. Happy Halloween to all of you. I hope you're enjoying this holiday if you do celebrate it in your country or in your family traditions or whatever. I'm Australian, so we don't really celebrate it here, so I normally use Halloween as an excuse to wear my Stitch onesie without being judged in this 30-degree weather. And to play an archetype, we are going to be talking about today Ghostricks, a fan-favourite archetype from all the way back in the Zexo era, who struggled to keep relevant over the years, especially when we got to the Link era. That was a fun time to be a Ghostrick player. But today isn't really me surveying this archetype, but more indirectly criticising Konami and how they do legacy support, because they haven't really done the archetype justice over the years in terms of support. Don't worry, I'm still going to do the normal shtick of talking about the cards, building the deck, all the tech options, but, I'm going to be more critical in this video too, about design philosophy. I still have a chip on my shoulder from the Security Force video, so consider this me going on a power trip. One man's journey to criticize Konami and to fail to get any attention while he does it. Also, I'm writing this before I finish the Skyfang Brigade video, so if this comes up before that video, I'm sorry Skyfang fans, but I need to talk about my poor Flippy boys, so you're gonna have to wait before I review your personas. Now, to the history lesson. Sometimes I wonder if people actually watch these parts, but hey, context is always nice. Ghostrick got their start back in Shadow Spectres in November 2013, and just like all first wave main set archetypes, it sucked ass. Now, you may be thinking I'm exaggerating here, because as long as they got a stable set of cards, they should be fine. But let me put it like this, they had no win con. Like, none. The deck with 4 win cons built into the archetype had no win cons on release. At best it had Ghoul, so it had beatdown strat, but this set only had Alucard, not Dullahan, who is the XYZ that enables beatdown. No, it had Alucard, which helps with control-based win cons. At least this set introduced key cards like Scan Mansion, but fuck, this first wave sucked. Which is why I'm glad to say the second wave was much better. Legacy of the Valiant gave us Dullahan and Nikomose, and most importantly, Skeleton Mill! I fucking love this card, Jesus. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Konami obviously knew what they needed to do to make this deck better by now, and, well, they still didn't feel like it was enough, because third wave gave us Burn and Primal Origins, and then the TCG exclusive World Superstars gave us the 4th win con in the form of their boss monster, Angel of Mischief. And then the support stopped. The deck died out during Arc V era and suffered a horrible fate when Link era came around. Extreme Forces and Initial Assault gave us 2 more support cards, which were okay, but not enough to help the deck. Fortunately, Konami took mercy at us and gave us 4 new support cards in the upcoming Battle of Chaos set. And let's just say those 4 cards were the Kickstarter for this video to begin with. I'm going to say this now. This archetype is incredibly dated. This archetype is going to be 8 years old next month. But despite that age and how popular the archetype was, Konami hasn't done the best job of keeping it relevant with legacy support, and I can't really blame them. The deck relies on a super slow control-based strategy of flipping cards, which is cute because it fits the theme of the deck, playing a trick on you. So it's kind of like, boo, scary monsters kind of thing. And I thought that was really cute, but just like Security Force, it's just too slow for today's meta. It's a deck that requires multiple turns to build a board, while most archetypes can just make a board in one. The archetype needs external support to work fast enough to even compete these days. But the problem is, the deck can be very xenophobic when it comes to that external support, and it's not because it's restrictions, but more due to how the cards were designed, which does sound a bit redundant, but you'll see why. So, the deck needed real archetypal support that helps build the board fast enough, and Battle Chaos tries to do that, but fails in a way. I will elaborate when we get to them, but for now let's talk about more of the older cards. Okay, before we start, let's explain what's the plan for this part. I want to go through each of them by level group, since they all share a similar theme through their levels. Just to give you the gist of that now, level 1s are the hand traps, level 2s are the control tools, and level 3s are the utility. Also, all the main deck Ghostricks have the same restriction of not being able to be normals on them without a face-up Ghostrick on the board, which is the main handicap of the deck. It's the reason why this deck wasn't able to escape the Zexal error, and why Konami, well, I think Konami needs to do something better when it comes to future support. Okay, let's start with the level 1s. There are only 4 level 1s, so let's talk about the defensive hand traps, which sounds redundant because they're all technically defensive hand traps, but these ones are more focused on protecting cards rather than gaining advantage from the loss of your cards or resources. So yeah, these cards are Jack Frost and Lantern, mandatory free-offs depending on what one you like more. Both summon themselves from the hand when attacked, but they are for specific situations. Jack Frost protects you from direct attacks only by flipping the attacker face down, while Lantern only negates attacks, including ones declared on your monsters, which also include your face downs. In my opinion, Jack Frost is the better option due to the fact that he can set up for knights, and he can also, well, he also kind of defeats the purpose of the other level ones. So if you want to get mileage out of those ones, Lantern is the way to go. Running both is fine, but running a set of one of the two is much better in my opinion. The other set of level 1s are based on damage and destruction respectively, Mary and Spectre, and yet again, free-offs depending on what one you like more. Spectre replaces a destroyed monster and draws 1, while Mary converts any damage you take into a deck summon. Obviously Mary is the better one of the two because a free summon from deck if you take damage is, well, amazing. Of course you are taking the damage, but there's a field sword that can help mitigate that, so it's not a very big deal. Spectre is more of a side deck option in my opinion, because it really shines in matchups where your opponent has a lot of removal options. So to sum up, free-offs of Mary in the main, free-off of Spectres in the side. So far so good, but we haven't entered the dated part of the deck yet, so let's talk about the level 2s. Let's start this group with the two most dated ones, Yuki Onna and Witch, both which I give a hard maybe to. Yuki Onna is a floodgate trap hole on legs, while Witch gives you a on-demand flip of enemy monsters. Both are good on paper, but bad in practice. Yuki Onna is horrendous these days. It loses to links, and it's made useless if you have a Ghostrick field spell out. Wouldn't recommend it for today's meta. Witch, on the other hand, is a little bit more salvageable, but we got cards like Scare and Roundabout to do her job, so cutting her out isn't a bad call. Nothing else to say here, because they're both just dated by the passage of time itself. So, Nico, Musa, Nei, and Dole, I want to say free-offs to both of them, but there's a caveat to that. But first the effects. Dole mass board flips and summons from deck based on how many cards you flip down from that effect, during the end phase of course, and Nico flips all summoned monsters face down if they are level 4 or higher, as long as you control another face-up Ghostrick monster. So Dole to me at least requires a lot of work to play around, and the same sort of applies to Nico. Like, Dole mass nukes board, which is incredibly potent when paired up with a certain trap, which is Knights, but that trap card requires you to have a face-up Ghostrick for it to work. It can work, certainly, but only can work properly once you know the ins and outs of the decks, in my opinion. She takes both experience and understanding of how the deck, well, works to carefully use this card effectively, because Dole can easily cost you get a game as easily as it can win you a game. Nico is also very useful as an archetypal level limit area B, but yet again requires you to have a phase of Ghostrick for it to work. It's very easy to cock up this effect or lose it because it requires protection, which the deck has, but yet again it depends on resources and understanding of the deck to make it work. So yeah, both are good, but both require some knowledge to work. Don't try them out until you are confident in your ability to pilot this deck well, which does sound like gatekeeping, but there's my genuine opinion about Dole and Nico. They do require you to know when do you want to use your resources, when do you want to use these effects properly in order to not only screw yourself over, well, not screw yourself over, but also screw over the opponent. Our last level 2 is Legacy support in the form of Fairy, which is weird because she's a spellcaster, not a fairy, but that's not important. It lets you recycle Ghostricks from your graveyard and set your opponent's monsters face down. It's the best of Witch and Doll combined with some good old recycling. Mandatory free off. Sure, it's not as potent, but it does the job well. So, we end the level 2 pull on a high note, although it did have its stinkers, but that's a normal for any Legacy archetype. It just happens the best cards are still heavily limited by that restriction we mentioned earlier. But bar that, it's okay so far. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the mixed bag there are the level 3s. So, yay, that's not going to be fun. So let's get the good ones out of the way. Jiangshi and Skeleton, who are mandatory free-offs. Let me repeat that, mandatory free-offs. Jiangshi, such as Ghostricks based on the number of face-up Ghostricks you have, and Skeleton is Skeleton. I mean, if you have fought Ghostrick before, you are painfully aware of what Skeleton can do. He's the best win con, and should be ran at free, even in decks where you don't want to go for Skeleton win con. Jiangshi earns its spot by being the more consistent searcher for the monsters, so he's going to be your main way of getting your protection cards like Jack Frost. Nothing else to say because they really just speak for themselves. Okay, now we got the good ones out of the way, let's go to the polar opposite end of this spectrum and talk about the bad ones. Yeti and Stein are so bloody dated. We have an unnecessary back row searcher when we have Angel and a new level 4. And Yeti is just confusing. Like, it protects a card for a turn upon being flipped up. It's just so bad. Yeti obviously wants to be used during your turn, so that's a scare or a roundabout you have to use to flip it up. But there's nothing else going for it. It doesn't even protect against other forms of removal, and worst of all, it's outdone by a trap. Vanish does Yeti's job, but it's for the entire board, including face downs. I'm sorry, Yeti, but you're just badly designed, even by the standards of your era of Yu-Gi-Oh! At least Stein was outclassed by later editions, but you were just bad. And notice before I forget, Stein's uses are made mute if you have Braid on field, aka the all-rounder searcher. Don't run these two. Now for the perfectly fine middle-of-the-road options, Werewolf, Mummy, and Ghoul. Werewolf is the worst one of the three since he's the only enabler for the burn win con, and the burn win con is the worst win con. Like, Werewolf does bare minimum in terms of burn, even with a full board, and then that damage gets ruined by 2 of the field spells because Parade makes sure your opponent takes no damage, and Mansion halves it for some reason that continues to baffle me, so you have to run Museum, and Museum has some problems, which we'll get to. Mummy, I have mixed opinions on for ages. It's slow, but also essential in a way for board buildings, as it provides an extra normal summon, but it has gained some relevance with the new spell. Ghoul is a mandatory free-off because it's the best way to get over beatsticks and pawn cards. So ratios, Werewolf is a free to if you want to do burn, and God save your soul if you want to do Ghostrick burn. Mummy might as well be a free-off now due to how important board building is, and Ghoul is a free-off because beatsticks. Capping off our main deck monsters, we have Siren, who is a level 4. Apart from the fact it runs the deck speed to run level limit area B and even Nico, it's weird. It's a self-mill that gives you a search for a back row card or flips an opponent's card face down. So it's like Fairy, but not Fairy. But it's a Fairy type with an effect like Fairy, but with a difference. I'm confused. You can't even use it for your ranks. It runs a card and a tech option for the deck, and it's trying to replace Fairy. I read it and I'm just baffled. Why make this? It just feels like a pack filler, but it does have its uses. I mean, on-demand back row searcher without Angel is good, because in practice, this can enable you to search a full set of back row, thanks with the current lineup. Something I'll elaborate on when we get to the traps. Honestly, it should have just been a level 2. Its effects fit in perfectly with a level 2, so why make it a level 4? This just feels like Konami doesn't know what they're doing with this archetype. A recurring theme with the latest wave of the Ghostrick, legacy support. Run it at 2 or 3 if you just don't want to run Nico, I guess. We're finally up to the extra deck, so let's go up in ascending order again, starting with Dullahan and So Cute Boss. Not Succubus, So Cute Boss. Honestly, why I despise pun names? This is a really clever way to censor Succubus, so good job there. Shame it kinda sucks, which is not a pun, but shut up. So Cute Boss is kinda bad because, well, it has a very good remove on control effect, as only closes off the opens if you don't control a face-up Ghostrick, which is another reason why Doll can be a liability in the deck. But what makes it bad is the fact she doesn't float upon being sent to the graveyard. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but considering Alucard and Dullahan does it, and makes them very valuable as angel material, because that's more recycling power, it makes So Cute Boss not a very appealing option to make. Dullahan, on the other hand, yet again not a non-intended pun, is very good. It gets stronger with each face-up Ghostrick card you control, can half the attack of face-up monsters, enables beatdown, and floats into recycling. He's a very good card. Mandatory Feoff, and in fact all the XYZs are mandatory Feoffs in my opinion, so just keep that in mind. Our next two extra deck monsters are Angel and Alucard. Alucard is a really solid option since he can remove face down cards. That means he can remove face down monsters and back row, which is very appreciated in this deck since it lacks those sort of options. Also floats into recycle, so yes please. Angel on the other hand is the linchpin of the deck. It's not only your biggest wall option with a fat 25k defense, it's also your main back row searcher and wincon card. Well, a wincon card. And thanks to renovation and shot, her wincon is now even easier to achieve. Let's talk about the link. I know people were scrambling for a link back in Link Era, but we're past that now, and the deck really doesn't need a link. I mean, the link zone is actually beneficial, since it enabled 6-card skeleton mills, and now with the new changes made to how link zones work, we can do that double angel strat again without the link zone screwing us over. But this link really isn't what we needed at all, even with this effect back in Link Era. Like, it's effectively a level 1 monster, rolled into a field spell, lets you attack directly with Ghostricks, and when your opponent attacks, it lets you summon a monster from deck. Good thing it also lets you link summon it with face down guards, or this would be worthless. Because why make a link that takes 2 turns to get out, when you can just make an XYZ? Still, with that change, I'm still not fond of it. I'm sorry, I don't see a use for it. Like, okay, you address the slow board build problem that Ghostricks has, and the problem that link monsters opposed to the Archetype, but it's still not fast enough. Like, the deck needs to be able to make its XYZs turn 1, and you aren't giving us that. I know it's a control deck, but control decks are also moving fast these days. Security Force can do it, and Witchcrafters can sort of do it thanks to EDO and Unveiling. Why can't Ghostricks do it? It's a Feoff, I guess, and I run it too, because I like having room for other rank options instead. I don't know. I don't like it. This is going to be a little bit aberrant because you may have, heard it. Well, you should have heard it. You should have been paying attention if you're watching this video. That I said Security Force is moving faster these days in terms of, like, as an example of a deck that's able to combo to make a board. But then if you remembered early in the video, I said, Security Force isn't fast enough at building boards. So it does sound a bit hypocritic, but here's the difference. Security Force is only capable of making 3 to 4 monsters with its best hand, and that's usually just a board of mediocre monsters. Compare that to more modern decks that are able to build very disruptive pieces, and they usually average a full board of monsters, or even 3 to 4, but then those cards alone are usually worth more than the Security Force monsters. So, yeah, even though I did say Security Force has to be the full combo to do its thing, I just don't think it's still fast enough to catch up, and Ghostricks also don't even have a chance, because, they're not even as fast as Security Force. So yeah, if Ghostricks were going to be relevant, they're going to have to really catch up, which I will get into later on. But yeah, sorry for this small tangent. I just thought I would point that out just in case anyone calls me out on it. So we'll just move on. We got 4 spells to go through, and 3 of them are field spells, so let's get the field spells out of the way. Our options are Museum, Parade, and Mansion, and it really just depends on what you like. I recommend 2 sets of the field spells in your deck, though. Mansion is a constant staple card just due to how it reduces all incoming damage by half. Parade is good when you want to do a lot of resource generation at the cost of damage, and Museum lets you play it safe and aggressively, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it really isn't in this case. Like, Museum isn't my favorite pick since it's a force flip face down. So while yes, it does save you time with flipping your cards and flips your opponent's cards for you, but you are still taking the full force of their damage. Personally, I personally like well, Parade and Mansion more, but I've seen people like Museum more than Mansion, so play around with them and see which one you like more in this case. So our single normal spell card is the new support card from Battle of Chaos, Ghostrick, Trick Shot. Wait, no, it's Ghostrick Shot. But it might as well just be called Trick Shot anyway. Oh, who cares? My problem with this card is that it's so close to being great and exactly what the deck needs, but it just falls short. Like, okay, being able to summon a Ghost Trick from hand or graveyard is cool. Being able to then flip up a card that's on the field is even better. But here's the faults of the cards. First problem, you have to draw it hard on your first turn. There is no archetypal way to search it turn 1 without external help. Second problem, you need to have a monster of the same level in your hand to make it worthwhile so you can make an XYZ. If this summoned from the deck, much better. It removes problem number 2. But I can see people saying that would be broken. But for me, it would be fair. Like, let's go back to examples I use of modern control decks. Ease of access to its boss monsters is one of the key strengths of Witchcrafter, and Security Force has Rapper, who summons from deck, who's searchable by Bridgehead. It also has Edge Razor, who can summon their key playmakers from hand on top of Showdown. And also, I didn't write this in yet, but Retroactive also fits in here, surprisingly. So, yeah. Security Force has a lot of good ways to get its high level playmakers out. Like, so now, these two don't even grasp the scope of, like, modern control decks. So, here's some other examples. Magic Bullet has Wildfire. Dogmatica can summon itself from hand provided there's an extra deck monsters on the field, which is quite easy to do if you're not playing it archetypally by itself. Nemesis is carried by Banish support. Player has a lot of search and draw power with their boss monsters having a way to summon itself from hand. I could just keep going. Getting back to Ghost Tricks, giving the deck a higher chance of opening that XYZ would be better for the deck, but Konami just won't do it. Regardless, it's a fee off for its playmaking ability, and also for the upside of being able to attach material from the graveyard. We're nearly on the home stretch now, just 3 more traps to go. Let's just rapid fire these since I have held you guys hostage long enough with my rants. I will discuss the uses of the 2 legacy cards by themselves. So anyway, Vanish is a fee off for being a very good blanket protection card. Scare is the key playmaker of your deck, letting you flip your cards during your opponent's turn and disrupting their plays. Break is an okay alternative to Spectre if you want more monsters on board overdrawing. Go Around is a bit dated and gimmicky, but can be a fun battle trap, and Knights is another key playmaker ensuring in a full board lockdown. So the 2 legacy traps, Renovation and Ghost Trick or Treat, these puns are getting a little bit cheesy, but I'll forgive it because the card art is cute. Anyway, Renovation is an archetypal terraforming, letting you freely rotate your field spells on the fly, which can be useful in a pinch, and does make Museum have its uses. What I like about the card is the fact that it can banish itself to turn a Ghost Trick XYZ into another Ghost Trick XYZ. Seems alright at first, but then you remember Angel was printed during the Zexo era. An era before we had hard once per turns. Yeah, this card enables double back row searches and speeds up the Angel win con faster. It's amazing and I love it. Now for Ghostrick or Treat, it's alright. So giving your opponent the choice to pay either 2,000 life points or lose a card for a turn is weird, because let's be honest, they will more likely take the LP loss, but then you remember this helps with both win and beat down win cons. And you don't lose this card. It's a win-win situation, although a bit too restrictive for me. 3 offs on both of these cards. So that does it for the breakdown. And well, it has its redeemable tools, but let's remember on the biggest problem of this deck, its inability to play a turn 1. Honestly, if you weren't forced to set your cards face down when you don't control a phase or Ghostrick, this deck would be more tolerable. But I can hear people saying, but then it won't be Ghostricks. Like, honestly, even if they weren't forced to be set down, it would still be Ghostricks. It's the fact it's a funny control nuisance deck with a focus on flipping is what makes it Ghostrick. Even if we remove the fact that we are forced to set these guys, if you don't control a phase or Ghostrick, the deck would still have to set its cards anyway, because sometimes it's not beneficial to play them in attack position, so nothing of value was lost. This archetype honestly would have aged a little bit better without the restriction in my opinion, since that opens other options that can help enable turn 1 XYZs. I'll save the rest of my tangent for the conclusion, so let's just talk about the tech options. I'm going to be straight with you, this part isn't going to be that big. I already mentioned some of my picks for tech. There's also an entire separate video just covering trap options for the deck, and you can also apply most of the tech options I mentioned Security Force here as well. So yeah, I sort of exhausted almost everything I have for the deck. I did say almost though, so let's talk about Evil Twins. I'm not particularly fond of Evil Twins, since to me they just seem like a do-nothing deck, but I will give them credit for how good they are as an engine for Ghostricks. Just using the base Live Twins, they give you access to turn 1 So Cute Boss into Angel, or you can just do their Link thing and make either their new Link 4, which is meh, Unchained Abomination, which is pretty good, or Griffin for Trap Retrieval or Board Lock. It does not very intrusive at 6 cards, 9 if you want to use the Searcher, which I wouldn't recommend since it locks you into the Evil Twin extra deck. A very solid pick for those who don't mind using external support to supplement their Ghostricks. The last options I want to talk about are generic ranks to play to fill out the extra. I'll be brief since I'm going to be covering ranks 1 to 3 with some exceptions. My rank 1 picks is Lionheart and Prince Fight, mainly because Lionheart is just funny to whip out, and Prince Fight is just, well, free draws, since most of your deck it should be back for options. There aren't any good generic rank 2s outside number 45, but you could also try Dark Mist if you want. Finally, rank 3s have Breaksaw, which is good removal, Grand Pulse for the same thing, and my personal favourite pick, number 30, because Big Beat Stick. And of course, there's Download if you want to rank up, and Zeus if you hate people, and you're bored. So yeah, wouldn't recommend doing Zeus. Here's my deck list, going for a 60 card variant. I think 60 cards is the best version of the deck, as it lets you run more options for the deck, but feel free to go for a 40 card variant if you feel more confident with that. I'm also running a lot of funny traps on the side, because why not? I'm getting the spirit of things. Also, this 60 card variant is of a all-rounder option, trying to fit in as many win cons as possible. So we got what, the beatdown win con, we got the skeleton mill win con, and the skeleton mill win con. I think this also used to have the burn win con. I'm saying you think, because I don't exactly have the picture in front of me, because I'm just recording this, so I'm trying to remember my own deck list off by heart, but I'm pretty sure this deck, the version I'm showing you, doesn't have Warwolf, but you could try Warwolf in here if you want to try going for all 4 win cons. Anyway, moving on. I still stand by the fact Konami has failed this archetype in terms of providing legacy support, and I'm not even going to pretend that's not a fact. This is a hot take and a half, so this is really just my opinion. They got it right the first 2 times with its one-off cards, but it feels like they weren't even trying with the new support. I see people defending it, and I feel like those people just, well, unfortunately don't get it. Konami made good cards. They had good cards here, but then they ruined it, and I think the player base can only see the good parts of the cards without thinking how it actually works in the deck. Siren should have been a level 2. There is no defending that. It's a dead card in terms of setting up your ranks and has overlapping effects with previous existing cards. If it lets you had both effects, I would have somewhat forgiven it. But the fact you have to choose between one of them is just bad. Festival feels unnecessary now. If this was Linker, I could forgive it, but we're in a Master Rule where Link columns actually benefit the deck now. And the Link is just a glorified hand trap in practice. But the opponent has more options than negate now, since it's on board instead of being safe in your hand. Shot would it be good if we had Archetype ways to search it turn 1, but where it stands is an alright card. And while Tree is an archetypal warning point with a lot of conditions, it feels like it captures the spirit of the archetype very well and is the most well thought out card. Overall, I think the support just doesn't get it, and I think Konami wasn't planning on that. This is a bit of conspiracy theory here, so get your tinfoil caps on, but I feel Konami's goal here wasn't to support the deck, but sell the set. I know Konami technically needs to be selling sets, but if they wanted to sell this set, they could at least not rush these cards, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Alright, because here's the thing. Battle Chaos comes out in October in the OCG, 2 weeks before Halloween. Ghostrick is obviously a Halloween-inspired archetype, so why not put Ghostrick support in the set that's close to Halloween to sell more packs? Yes, I know this sounds like a crackpot theory with no evidence, but I feel like it's not a coincidence. Konami has been very on the ball this era with legacy port. For examples, look at Stardust, Utopia, Trapix, or literally anything from the last few packs. For them to suddenly drop the ball on Ghostrix, a well-beloved archetype by the community, either means Konami put someone who didn't know what to do for the archetype behind this new wave of support, or it's just a rush job they announced it to get more cards on the set. Take it either way you want, be it Konami intentionally rushing these cards for promotions and trying to sell set, or it's just sheer incompetence, but whatever way you cut it, it's just still a bad wave of support. I know I came off kind of rude to this deck, but it's really because I love this archetype. I've been playing them ever since I first discovered them at my first ever trip to locals, and they were the reason why Gimmicky ever became a thing. This is a deck I love thoroughly, which is why I got pissy about the new wave of support. It doesn't do the deck justice. If you have fun with the new wave of support this Halloween, well, more power to you. Don't let some salty 20-year-old in his Stitch onesie ruin your Halloween fun with one of the most fun and creative stun strategies the game has ever produced. Yes, they are dated, and yes, the new support doesn't help much, but goddamn, it's still a blast to play this deck, and even more fun when you can cheese out that victory. Just don't play this against your friends, they will probably end up with PTSD, and never want to look at a face down card ever again. I should know, I'm speaking from experience. Now, excuse me, but I have some people to pull some tricks on, so happy Halloween, and I'll see you for the next video.